Welcome to our next episode of Trip Tease. I am Lia Vincent, and today joining me is Jeanette. She is an agent with me with Vincent Vacations, and we just returned from a great trip to Africa. We visited 3 different countries, and we are going to tell you all about it with all of our tips, tricks, what time of year you should go if you want to see certain things, how you should pack, is it safe? Welcome, Jeanette.
Well, hello. I'm glad to be here.
I will say that I have had more extreme travel before, like when I went to Thailand or Fiji, the time difference is more extreme. But I will say that, so this is when you're in South Africa, like if you go to Johannesburg, it's an 8-hour time difference. So that is the same as Rome. So a lot of people go, oh my gosh, I bet that's so extreme, but it's not any more extreme than going to Europe. So keep that in mind. It's not that crazy. We flew on American and British Airways via London. We did a long layover in London, like 12 hours, and left the airport. So you can totally do that. But when you do that, make sure you didn't bring a huge carry-on, because then what are you going to do with it? Jeanette and I flew with some of the other travel agents via London. I instigated that because I like to fly on American Airlines to get my loyalty points. And some of the other agents, this was an all-agent trip, flew from either Washington, D.C. nonstop or Atlanta nonstop all the way to Cape Town. That's so easy to get to South Africa. That was our first destination in Africa. I did fly on this weird Airbus situation on British Airways, and I was in business class. It's one of the oldest ones, and it's like a kind of like an 8. So when you sit there, you're facing diagonally the person that's in the seat next to you. So I was basically staring at him. After you take off and you get to 10,000 feet, then you can lift up the little divider. If you are flying on British Airways in business class, check the configuration of business class because this plane sucks. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about Cape Town. We only spent 3 nights in Cape Town, and when we first got there, the weather was amazing, and then the weather sucked the other 2 days that we were there. So I think we just got, some bad luck, but that's how weather goes. Jeanette, which was your favorite day? So we had 2 days. One was a kind of Cape Highlands, I think they called it, tour, where we did Cape of Good Hope and the penguins and kind of just like the general stuff that's in the Cape Town and the surrounding area. And then the other day was wine day. And I'm joking with Jeanette because every single day was the best day ever. So which was the best day ever in Cape Town?
You're asking me to pick which is my favorite child, I think, because they were so amazing, but yet so different. When we booked the trip, I didn't even know that there were penguins in South Africa. So I'm the travel agent that probably would have flunked geography when I was in school. Just to see penguins in Africa on the beautiful ocean as the waves were crashing, that was pretty special. But your girl Jeanette does like her wine, so that was really a cool experience too. We got to make our own wine, and mine was called The Best Day Ever.
So they had this thing at one of the vineyards where we were able to blend our own wine. So we would taste different wines and then just say oh, I really like this kind the most, and I'm going to blend it with this kind, and then see how they do the whole bottling process where you put the cork in it and put it into this machine. And I thought that was really neat, and that was something unique. I've actually done the wine tour before. So I took my kids in 2021, and it was a completely different experience. They geared mine towards vineyards that had more kid-oriented things. So they had little animals, and they had juice tastings and stuff like that. So if you're traveling with little kids, you could still totally do a wine day tour. The kids wouldn't have enjoyed the winemaking day. So there's lots of different things that you can do in Cape Town. We stayed at a hotel right on the waterfront. I would totally go back and just hang out in Cape Town. What do you think?
Absolutely. There were so many things to do. One night we did a specialty restaurant called Gold, and we got to have, I can't remember how many courses. There were 11 food courses. And we also got to see authentic African dances and drumming entertainment. They painted our faces while we were there.
Yeah,
it was really just a neat experience. I highly suggest, if you've never been before, to take part in that. And the best part of that was it wasn't that expensive. The food there and the drinks are really cheap.
I've always been really impressed with how reasonable everything was. One of the nights we went, I looked up like best restaurants, in Cape Town, and it wasn't just like which one is the number one, which is the most expensive. I was kind of looking for which one had like the coolest atmosphere. And I picked up that tab, and I mean, you guys are all being like super nice to me about picking up the tab, but for like 8 people, it was only like $250. It's not expensive at all.
And it was so good. That's crazy. That is crazy.
I mean, we spend that for 2 people at home.
Oh,
if we like really kind of go all out and, all that kind of stuff.
When I was putting the conversion into my Google, I was like, is it really this cheap? Surely maybe I've done it wrong. But it really was. When I got my credit card statement, I was like, oh, it's really that cheap. That's pretty cool.
The Penguins, the Cape of Good Hope, we toured all around. We weren't able to go to the top of Table Mountain. We went up to where you were able to take the cable car up. I will say that is the kind of catch and minus of if you're going for a short period of time, you're not able to kind of gauge when the weather's going to be the best to be able to go to the top of Table Mountain. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to go to Cape Town in like the spring where it's going to be a little bit hotter, then it's going to be a lot hotter when you're on safari. So if you're doing both, I still think I would pick the time of year that we went, because I like going on safari when it's colder. You're going to see more animals. The brush is going to be down more, so you're going to be able to find the animals more, and then you're not hot. I would rather be cold. I'd rather wear a blanket and a coat and be cold than be hot. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. And I honestly felt like even though Cape Town was rainy and a little bit cool, I never was uncomfortable cool. Like I wasn't ever freezing. It was like a spring day in Oklahoma, and you never know what you're going to get. So you just dress in layers.
Yeah, it was more like 50s and 60s, like misty, rainy. Yeah, not crazy. Okay, so then from there, and I feel like people maybe don't realize how like easy it is to get around in Africa. Then we flew from Cape Town to Hoedspruit, which is the airport that's really close to Kruger National Park. And one thing I didn't know, and I'm assuming Jeanette didn't know either, is that all of the animals are in some sort of fence in South Africa. You would have lions walking down the street while kids are going to school if they didn't do this. So, I mean, I think it's just something that's like not in our thought process, so we don't even realize that. And when I say a fenced-in area, it's like a big fancy zoo, but it's like, oh, well, all these animals live together like wild Africa, like you're picturing. But like the one that we were in, when we figured out the hectares, it was 85 square miles. So it's huge. It's not this just little tiny area that you're going on safari in and that you don't feel like you're in the zoo. But they are enclosed, so they do know how many rhinos. They know how many lions. They know all of those things. They actually would not even tell us in that first place how many rhinos they have, because they have such a poaching problem that all of the different reserves do keep that under wraps because they don't want the poachers to use that to their advantage. So when you're trying to decide on where you want to go on safari, that's something that we can talk to you about. So the last time I went, I stayed in Sabi Sands, and they said, oh, that's where everybody goes if you want to see the most leopards. Mm-hmm. So, and then the second place we stayed in Gala, I know I'm not saying it right, but it's Ngala, and it looks like Nagala. Oh. I can't do the pronunciation. That place is super known for lions. So like if you really want to see something really specific, then we can talk about that when we're booking your trip. But there's lots of different reasons you would pick one or the other. Kapama is the one that they choose for Adventures by Disney when you go with Disney on a whole Africa trip. So I think that was really cool to see where Disney has chosen. So when you go on safari, everything's included when you're staying at the lodge. So the safari drives, you do a 3-hour drive in the morning at sunrise and a 3-hour drive at sunset. That's all included. During the drives, they'll stop halfway and they'll do, like in the morning, they'll do like little biscuits and coffee. And then in the evening, they'll do like wine, beer, Cokes. You can tell them if you have specific needs, and cookies or something like that. They call that a sundowner. And then your food, breakfast, lunch, dinner, is included. What do you think of the food, Jeanette?
There was not a meal that I did not like. I loved everything about it. The last meal at Kapama was breakfast, and I know this sounds crazy, but it's the best breakfast sandwich I have ever eaten in my life. The bread was like a soft home-baked bread. The cheese was like Asiago maybe with sliced ham. Like it just, and like a honey mustard. I'm going to try to like replicate it here, but I'll just go back. I'll just go back and have another.
Just go back. And they're like, oh, I'm so glad you came back. What made you come back? And you're like, the breakfast
sandwich.
Sandwich. Not the lions, not the leopard. The breakfast sandwich. Okay, and then drinks are included too. It wasn't like top shelf, but still like pretty good. We had a lot of different I like sparkling wine, so that was included, so there was a lot included. You had to kind of look for something that was not included. And even if it wasn't included, if you were real particular, like you want a single malt scotch or whatever, those things, stuff like that, where it's more high end, it still was pretty reasonable.
And I found the best beer, and I'm going to look for it here at home, but it's Kilimanjaro beer. The bottle was on steroids. I don't know. It's not the regular size. I don't know how many ounces it was, but it was way bigger.
I need the bottle on steroids of African beer, please. Thank you.
And then there was something else that we drank on Sundowner. It's from the tree that has the fruit on the tree that the elephants eat.
Amarula?
Amarula. I could not think of that. So good. I'm going to buy some.
Well, that morning when they did mocha chocarula, and it was mocha coffee with the hot chocolate and the shot of the Amarula.
The French
and they
toast.
just made that up, but everybody really liked it. I'm not a coffee drinker, but
it was good. Yeah, it was delicious.
I think that's something that people maybe are apprehensive because they've seen like National Geographic and they think when they're going to Africa, they're just going to eat bugs and weird stuff all the time. And that is totally not the case. They're actually super American friendly. I really like curry, for example. We had curry a couple of different nights, but you didn't have to have curry. They had steak, they had chicken, they had just all sorts of like very familiar things.
Yes.
Very familiar. So all of that included. So when you're seeing a price of a safari, I think people are like, ooh, that's a lot. But then you really have to take into account everything that's included. Then, and because we're travel agents, this is a group of travel agents, we only stayed 2 nights at Kapama, and then we moved to Ngala, stayed 1 night there. We're trying to experience 2 different kinds. So Ngala, that one, the way it's different is that it's only fenced on 3 sides. So it's open to Kruger. On one instance, we really wanted to see the Birmingham Pride, and spoiler alert, we got to see them, and I'll tell you why they're extra special. They went and did like a search along the perimeter to see if they could see the lion tracks if they had left their property. So that was something different because at the other place, they can't leave. It's fenced. Maybe they don't know where they are because it's 85 square miles, but they know that they're in there somewhere, but there is a chance that they could leave. And then the other difference is at Kapama, this is probably why Disney picks it, is where the accommodations are is completely fenced. You could have maybe the impalas or some like little deer or something could get in that little area, but none of the big and like scary animals. So you could just walk to your room. You could leave in the middle of the night and walk to the lobby, no problem. In Ngala, I think this freaked everybody out. I think I was the only one that was like, I love this aspect. And everyone else is like, let's go back to the other camp where we can walk wherever we want at night and not be scared. So they had locks on the outside and on the inside. And that was something when I stayed at the other places before too. They said that the baboons are really smart. So they have to have all these different locks because they'll figure it out, or a key. We didn't really see baboons on that property. No. I did see them at the other property, but they're like, better not leave it because they'll totally steal your stuff.
Yeah.
They would walk us from the lobby to our room with a flashlight, and they probably had a gun too. I didn't see the gun because they said pretty much anything could come into the property besides like an elephant. They had it kind of blocked where the elephants couldn't come in. The elephants could probably do some serious damage.
Yeah.
But that was something different. And then what I really wanted to do was to sleep in a tree house because I was like, okay, I've done this trip before. I'm doing this for the agents. I want to change it up. I want to sleep in a tree house. And this hotel has this treehouse experience. I want to say they failed to mention, it definitely could have been a failed to listen. So we're checking in and I'm like, okay, and what about when I'm sleeping in the treehouse? Because they're giving me my room. And they're like, yeah, we're going to take you there and you're going to have dinner out there. And I was like, no, I don't want to leave the group. I just thought, we would have dinner, we would hang out for a while, play cards or whatever. And then I'd go sleep in my treehouse. They're like, well, the treehouse is 45 minutes away in the middle of the bush. I'm like, what? Spoiler alert, I didn't end up sleeping in the treehouse, but we did get to go out there and experience it at the Sundowner. Isn't it cool?
It was so amazing. Like 4 different levels. There was like a little fortress of like a wooden fence around it, but still animals could like crawl over. I'm sure you'd be protected, right?
They did say that they don't stay there overnight with you. I don't know if there's some sort of like emergency phone call thing situation, but where you sleep, they do have that part enclosed with a door. So, and that's on the third level. So it goes like kitchen and a little dining area, bathroom, shower, and all that, bedroom, and then a rooftop. So you could like sit up there under the stars. I've never seen the Milky Way before, and we could see all of the Milky Way.
It was amazing. Unlike anything I've ever seen before.
Except for Jeanette was like, well, in Crescent, Oklahoma, you can see it.
You can. Sometimes you can see it.
But you also could see the Southern
Cross.
Southern Cross. And I've definitely never seen that or known to even look for it. So that's something you can only see in the Southern Hemisphere. So that's really neat.
Yeah. Well, they kept saying, there's a Southern Cross. And I was like, okay. I don't know what that is, but I guess the sailors would use it at night to sail. They would know which direction to go.
Okay. Well, next time I go, I'm sleeping outside in the tree house, and luckily for us, we were right outside of the malaria window. I know I said I would talk about that. That's something that you would just talk to your doctor about, obviously, but there is a window of time where basically in like their summer that you're more likely to get malaria when it's winter, kind of like here.
Yeah.
You know, when it's winter, you don't have mosquito problems. In the summer, you have mosquito problems. So, and they have the opposite seasons as us. So that's why it was colder. We would wear layers, and then you could take them off once it got warmer. If we were staying somewhere for a longer period of time, so if we stayed all 3 nights, we would have been able to have time to get laundry done at the lodge. That's something that's included. Like in Ngala, that's free. You just fill up the laundry hamper. It's included as another perk when you're staying there. So that's something I did before when I went on safari. And an option that you could do if you wanted to extend and have it be a little bit closer is to go to like Victoria Falls. That's an easy add-on. I had already done Victoria Falls, talked everybody into going to Zanzibar, which was so cool. It was such a pain to get there. We had to fly back to Joburg. Then we took like a 1 a.m. flight from Joburg to Nairobi. And then we had to fly from Nairobi, and the flight got delayed by 7 hours to Zanzibar. But when we got there, I felt like I was on the set of Aladdin. And I said that like, I feel like people were sick of me saying and doing all these Disney references, but I really felt like, to me, it's like magical and like how you picture. And honestly, the people of Disney go to these types of places and they model stuff after it. So they do a good job. It's a predominantly Muslim, they said 95% Muslim country, which is not the same as if you're in Kenya or South Africa. They asked you to dress more modestly, which is, you know, understandable. You have to kind of go with what the culture was. We stayed at the Park Hyatt, and it was right in Stone Town. What'd you think of the Park Hyatt?
And wasn't that like a former palace?
Yes, built by a sultan. And I was like, there you go. I'm getting the whole Aladdin experience. Exhibit A and B and C.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Park Hyatts are always built in like really cool locations, I think. I really am a big Park Hyatt fan. I just stayed at a Park Hyatt in Washington, D.C. in April. I'm a big Park Hyatt fan. But when we would tell people where we were staying, they were like, oh, that's the nicest hotel in Zanzibar. So that made me feel good.
I love the hotel. I loved the people were so kind. At first, like the ocean, I wasn't in love with it. But once we did the historical tour the next day and we got immersed in the culture, I just fell in love with that area.
Yeah. So at first you guys were being chickens. Let's just be real.
Okay.
And it was like just a lot of local people there that were coming and doing like they were going fishing and stuff like that. So like the marina was right there. So it was a lot of, it wasn't tourists. Right. It was local people.
Yeah.
And if you haven't traveled a lot, I could see that being like, oh, I don't know these. I don't know. And I'm like, oh, let's go shopping. So I'm like, I got a new dress. I got all kinds of stuff. But yes, I agree. You should do the historical tour as soon as you get there or the very next day. And then you can kind of understand do's and don'ts, understand the history, understand. I think him giving us all the do's and don'ts, like don't just take people's pictures, like ask first. If you're taking a picture and it's just a general area, it's not one particular person, that's okay. But don't just like walk up and take someone's picture. I would say that's a good rule for anywhere you go.
Oh,
you don't
absolutely.
Want just walking up and taking. I'm really careful about. I don't want to take pictures of people's kids unless they say it's okay, because that's a hot topic.
Yeah, for sure.
So Zanzibar has tons of history. They had the slave trade stuff. That was it was like depressing but interesting at the same time, would you say?
Absolutely. I mean, it just touches at your heartstrings
Mhm.
what they had to endure. But what I loved the most about that area is after the slave trade, after they were free, they came in and built a beautiful Catholic church over the area where the slaves had been beaten. So now they have even worship services today still
Mhm.
in that of year old church. It was
But
just
they
gorgeous.
still have stuff to remember so people don't forget what happened there on that side. I thought that was really moving
Yes,
too.
absolutely. Very
So
moving.
tons of history. So there's only two places, I guess, in Africa that are that's like Ghana and then here in Zanzibar. I always knew Ghana, but I didn't know that about Zanzibar. Then they traded, like, I think over to India. They said they had a lot of India influence there in Zanzibar. I thought that was evident with like a lot of the food that we had was
I
a lot of
agree.
Indian food. And then we did a day trip. One of the agents went to one of the islands and played with the turtles. But then we went to the beach. They conned me into it a little bit and told me it was less than an hour. And then, like, an hour and 45 minutes later, we were at the beach. But it was really pretty. There's actually a nice all inclusive resort. I say nice. I didn't actually see the hotel, but it's newer ish up on the tip. So Zanzibar's the island of Zanzibar. So it's part of the country of Tanzania. But the island of Zanzibar is kind of shaped like an egg. And so it's at the very top of the egg, and white beaches, clear water, kind of, it's the Indian Ocean. It kind of reminded me of the Caribbean. They had beach clubs. There's also hotels up there. We were just kind of winging it. They met this bartender who found us a driver. The waiter was like, I'll go with you guys.
Yeah, we are driving along, and all of a sudden the driver pulls over, and there's a guy on the side of the road. And Leah is like, "What's going on right now?" And the other travel agent was like, "Oh, that's our bartender from last night. I invited him to go with us."
Like the door is opening. I'm like, what? Like, why is he? Are we picking up hitchhikers? I'm like,
Jump
what is
on in.
happening? Anyways, so we drive up to the beach. We had beach club day. They had food service, drink service. There was like I think a minimum spend, which was really
Yes.
reasonable to have like beach bed type service and Wi-Fi.
Hmm.
And Jeanette and I rode a jet ski.
Yep.
We rode a jet ski for $40 all over the Indian Ocean. It
Yeah.
was pretty epic at sunset.
The most beautiful sunset. I mean, I say that about all the sunsets, but this was really a special sunset.
Yeah, I will say that the pictures don't capture it, but it captured it better than a lot of sunset pictures. It really was that like big beach orange ball that you were seeing going down into the ocean. And the weather was perfect. So that was something different with Zanzibar. It was like in the low 80s. It was really nice. So we were in lots of different climates. So it was kind of hard to pack. And some of the intercontinent flights, we had to have our bag less than 44 pounds. And when I got to the airport on the last leg, they were like, this is more than 44 pounds. And I was like, well, what do you want me to do? Like, I'll pay. What do you want me? And they're like, come with me. They had me go to this separate building. And I was like, here we go. Like, what are we going to do? Like, how much am I going to have to pay? $6. I was like, are you serious? In the United States, when you go, your bag's overweight, it's usually like $100. And I was
Yeah.
like ready to pony up $100. And then, so Zanzibar, we were only there 2 days. It's a great beach destination, lots of history. I would definitely go back. I've already actually been like playing on villas of distinction, these different villas that I could stay in next summer and bring my kids. It's definitely family friendly. And then on the way home, we did this on purpose, a super long layover in Nairobi so we could go check out Giraffe Manor. And Giraffe Manor is probably one of the most popular hotels to stay at in the entire continent of Africa. And it's because there's only 12 rooms to stay at in Giraffe Manor. There's 6 in the main part of the manor, and then the little like wing, I think it's called the garden wing, there's 6 more rooms. That's it. And this is the famous hotel where the giraffes come and eat. They stick their heads through the window at breakfast. They come for high tea to the patio area at 5 o'clock. And so that's what we wanted to see and be able to sell to our clients. It's actually part of a giraffe
Conservatory.
conservatory. Yeah, that's the right word. It's right next door. And so we were able to go feed the giraffes next door and kind of see. They had field trips. It's that kind of situation. And then you just walk back and forth. It actually has a little door in between the conservatory. But they just open that during high tea and during breakfast. And then the giraffes just come over because they know that there's treats. Mm-hmm. So we weren't actually staying. So we weren't able to eat breakfast because there's 12 rooms and they only have 12 tables. But we were at the retreat next door, which is basically like kind of like a day spa. Like, I don't know how else to say it, but you can't sleep there, but they have rooms that you could like take a nap in.
Yeah.
And I wore my giraffe onesie because why not? And I love shock
Why wouldn't you?
values. You have to watch me on TikTok, my giraffe onesie.
So funny.
And the giraffes came after their high tea, and we got to feed them, and they licked my face, and it really made me happy.
And they said they may not even come over to our side, that they don't always come over. But then I think Ed, the male giraffe, was like, who's that hot babe over there in the giraffe outfit? I think I'll go check her
That's
out.
exactly what he was thinking. And they got a kick out of us. The food was really, really good. I was really impressed with the food. I had this like goat cheese beet salad, and it was so good. And this broccoli ginger soup.
Yeah.
That sounds weird, but it was so good. I was like licking the plate. It was so good. But when you're staying at Giraffe Manor, the food's included. But if you're at the retreat, you actually can pay for like a day room or a day pass. There's like 2 different ways you can do it. And then you just buy the food that you want to have. And so that's perfect. If you're checking out of your hotel, if you have to check out at 9 or 10 in the morning, your flight's not until 10, 11, 12 at night, then that's a great place to come and hang out and kind of just have a grand finale of your day. And you'll be able to see the giraffes. They just won't guarantee they'll come over, but they're getting so much more used to the retreat. They actually built that building during COVID. So the giraffes are just getting more and more used to getting my treats over here, and I'm going to walk over here. And when I'm saying just like across the yard, it's not really far. We're able to go over to Giraffe Manor and go to the gift shop and see the neat property that it is. It used to be really, really hard to get a room at Giraffe Manor, like where you were going to book it 2-3 years in advance. Now, if you're date flexible, we would be able to get you in this next year. So the facilities were really nice. They had a nice sauna, steam room, jacuzzi, pool. You can use all of those things. And then massage was less than $100.
Yeah. What I loved about the jacuzzi, I got to do the jacuzzi while you guys were doing your massages. And so I had a wet swimming suit. And as soon as I got in to do my massage, she was like, hey, let me take that swimming suit. And they dried it for me. So I didn't have to put a wetsuit back in my suitcase. So they just go that extra mile.
Great job, Giraffe Manor in the retreat. Yeah. Shout out. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Jeanette. I really enjoyed South Africa, Tanzania / Zanzibar, and Kenya. Kenya was my 50th country that I visited. It feels weird to say only 50 because I feel like I travel all the time. But, some places I've been 20 times. So keep that in mind. I'm going to actually do Ecuador and Norway in the next 2 months. So we'll stay tuned and definitely do a podcast on that. When you're planning Africa, I think the best part of our trip was that we used a local company there that was able to coordinate VIP. We were met when we get off the plane. We were met when we got to the curb. We never had to guess and wonder where we were going. It made it easy. And adding the VIP service to a package is really reasonable. So you don't have to be an apprehensive traveler when you're going to Africa. You can really go first class and have all of those services, and you will, honestly, I probably fancier experience than if you're just traveling domestically, which sounds crazy. We would love to help you plan Africa, and I think that we can do a great job for you. And I would love for people to reach out to Jeanette. She is super fun to work with, and you should follow her on social media. Jeanette, let everyone know your social media handles and how they can get a hold of you.
Absolutely. I am on Instagram with Jeanette with Vincent Vacations, and Facebook, Jeanette with Vincent Vacation, and TikTok. I'm a little bit new to, but watch out because it's getting ready to blow up.
And of course, you can reach out to me, Vincent Vacations, on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. And we can't wait to help you plan Africa.